Picture this, it's 1970, before the internet. There was no dating apps, no swiping right on a profile, just the simplest level of human communication. It was over 50 years ago, and this is the story of how my mom and dad met. Today is the 41st wedding anniversary of Melda and Eduardo Odango. And what I'm about to share with you is something so special and dear to my heart because it's something that's almost unheard of in today's world. My dad is the oldest of 12 siblings. He's the strongest person I know. And he's also a published author of a book where he talks about the journey of becoming a Master Chief in the US Navy. My father joined the military in 1970. He was just a kid living in his home working on their farm in the Philippines. And at the time, recruiters came to a province several miles away from them. My grandfather went there with my dad on a boat. Over 200 young men signed up in hopes to make a better life for themselves and their families. They had to take an exam to get admitted to become a sailor, and out of the hundreds, only 2 of them passed, and my father was one of them. This was a major turning point in my dad's life, and he knew that this opportunity was once in a lifetime. Eventually, he got his first station in Honolulu, Hawaii. This is where he got his first experience of America, and he had to go through a lot of struggles and challenges to get where he is today. And this is where he and my mom's story begins. While he was on the ship, the USS Kawashiwi, in his first year, my grandma had the idea to put his name in the pen pal section of a Philippines newspaper and magazine. This was like their generation's version of giving people a chance to meet other people their age before the internet was a thing. My mom, who was living in Cebu at the time, saw my father's name and she decided to write him a letter. And when I asked her why she chose my dad's name out of all the men on that list, she replied, his address was Hawaii, and she thought, I want to write to someone there in America. So then, 1971, the first letter was written. My mom includes little details about herself, her name, where she's from, and she told him that she was in school to become a nurse. And she also shared some values that make her a great woman. When I think about what that must have been like, to write a letter to someone you've never seen or met before, and have hopes that maybe that person, thousands of miles away, could one day be the love of your life, and the person you end up spending forever with. You know, it's amazing to me. I asked them how long it took for letters to get back and forth from each other, and they said it would take anywhere from 2 weeks to an entire month sometimes, which really means every letter you send has to be special, which is much different than today. You know, like we could send a direct message to anyone in the world at any second, and this really reminds me that we can't take that for granted. So, on the other side of this story, my dad is a fresh new recruit living on a ship in Hawaii. And he doesn't even know that my grandma puts his name in the newspaper. So in that first year, he receives 20, 30 different letters from girls all over the Philippines. Some included pictures of themselves, stories about their life, and what their dreams of the future are. And it was so many letters that my dad said sometimes he didn't even read them. In fact, one of the craziest things about this is that he would give some of the unopened letters to some of his mates, other sailors on the ship, and they ended up writing back to them. And those girls didn't even realize that they were receiving a letter from someone other than my dad. I mean, they were still a sailor in the Navy, so. But what makes it even crazier is that a few of those sailors end up marrying those women. Yeah. So, back to my mom and dad. They are pen pals from 1971 to 1980. Almost 10 years of writing to each other. They said it was over 50 letters back and forth. And what's so beautiful is that they only chose to write to one person, each other. Keep in mind, I asked them if they had access to phones, and they did. But back in the day, in order for my dad to hear my mom's voice, he had to wait in a really long line on the ship. Sometimes it took several hours, and he only had a few minutes to talk. They don't meet until my dad flies back to Mindoro to see my grandma. And he flies to Cebu City and finally meets my mom for the first time. I asked them what it was like, and they both said it was each other's smile that really made them fall in love. He got to meet her family, and my mom said she was really nervous, but my dad was a gentleman and really respectful. And I guess they knew right then and there that they were the ones for each other, because they got married just a few months later. Their wedding was at Capitol Church in Cebu, and my dad sang her their favorite song, which is Let Me Call You Sweetheart. And since then, 41 years of marriage. They raised a loving family, 4 kids, myself, and my 3 older sisters. And every day it reminds me that real love exists. And if they could find it in a story like that, anyone can. Love y'all. Happy anniversary.